My hands won't stop shaking. The resignation letter sits on the HR desk like a loaded gun, and I'm staring at my own forged signature. But that's not what made my throat close up. It's the paragraph beneath my name, words I never wrote, printed in bold black ink. I admit my incompetence has damaged this department. I resign immediately and acknowledge my failure to meet professional standards. I never said that. I never wrote that. Ms. Morgan, the HR manager, Diane, says carefully, "We need you to acknowledge receipt of this letter." "I didn't resign," I say, my voice cracking. "And I didn't write this." That's when Jason Blackwell, my boss, shifts his weight behind me. When I turn, there it is. That smirk. The one that says he's already won. "Riley," he says softly, "just sign it. Go quietly." Diane slides a pen across the desk. Security is already waiting downstairs. The room starts spinning. My single paycheck. My son's tuition. The apartment I can barely afford. I realize in that moment. He's already made his move. 2 hours later, I'm sitting in my car in the parking garage, and I still can't breathe right. Jason had cornered me in the hallway before security arrived. He'd leaned in close, his voice just a whisper. "Just go quietly, Riley. You made this easier than I thought." I'd stepped back, my jaw so tight I could taste blood. "What did you do?" "I've been documenting your incompetence for weeks," he'd said, straightening his tie. "Performance issues, missed deadlines, protocol violations. All in your file. HR has everything they need." The problem was, I'd never heard about any of these things before today. Not one performance review. Not one warning. Not one mention of missed deadlines. For 3 years, I'd been the person who kept that department running while Jason took client calls and took credit. HR mentioned something strange, I'd told him. They referenced performance concerns I've never heard about. They couldn't show me the documentation. I watched him. Really watched him. And for just a second, his jaw tightened. His eyes flickered. He'd been building this. All of it. Fake paper trail. Probably for months. As I sat in my car, my phone buzzed. A text from Jason. "Don't make this worse for yourself." I saved the screenshot. That's when I remembered something he didn't know about. My files. Let me introduce myself properly. My name is Riley Morgan. I'm 34 years old. I'm a single mother to an 11-year-old boy named Aiden. I work as a senior operations coordinator at Meridian Financial Services. Or I did anyway until about 6 hours ago. I'm also the person who has documented every single thing I've ever done at that company in meticulous detail. Not because I'm paranoid, but because I learned a long time ago that in corporate America, if you don't have proof, you don't have anything. My ex-husband taught me that lesson when he disappeared on child support. So yes, I save everything. Keep email copies. Take screenshots. I photograph important conversations. I log my hours, my accomplishments, my projects. Because I'm a single mom, and my job is the difference between Aiden having healthcare and us living in a car. Sitting in my car after being suspended, humiliation choking me, I flashed back to all the nights I'd fixed Jason's mistakes. The quarterly reports he'd bungled that I'd quietly corrected. The clients he'd promised things to that I'd delivered on. 3 years of that. 3 years of being invisible. And then, in one morning, I was the problem. I started my car and drove home. Aiden was at school. I had the house empty, quiet, and 4 hours before I needed to pick him up. I walked to my bedroom closet, moved the shoeboxes aside, and pulled out my personal backup drive. The one Jason never knew existed. I plugged in the drive, and my laptop filled with folders. Each one labeled with dates. Each one containing screenshots, email chains, and workflow logs that painted a very different picture than the one Jason had painted for HR. First, the Westbrook report from January. Jason had submitted it under his name. I clicked the original email chain. There it was, an email from Jason to me. "Riley, can you fix the Westbrook numbers? I promised the client these would be clean by Friday. Don't put this in writing, but we need them to show growth." I had a screenshot of that email. I also responded professionally. I can't alter numbers to show false growth. His response. Then make it look like clerical errors. Second, the missing inventory numbers from March. My files contain the original task from Jason. Riley, approve the Q1 inventory without the missing shipment entries. And my response. I can't approve incomplete inventory. This violates protocol. His follow-up. Just do it. I'm your manager. I hadn't done it. But the approved spreadsheet that appeared in the system 3 hours later had my name flagged as the approver. Except my computer logs showed I'd never touched that file after 2:47 p.m. The approval came in at 4:32 p.m. Jason's device ID was in the metadata. He'd doctored it himself and blamed me. I sat back in my chair, and for the first time since seeing that forged resignation letter, I felt something other than fear. Felt cold. Perfectly, crystallinely cold. I needed to move carefully. I needed someone inside the system who could help me understand what else he'd done. I picked up my phone and called Maya Rodriguez. Maya and I had worked together for 2 years before she transferred to the compliance department. We'd had lunch maybe twice since then. But I'd always liked her. And more importantly, I'd once covered for her when she'd missed a deadline, doing her work without complaining. People remember kindness like that. Maya, it's Riley Morgan, I said when she picked up. I need to ask you something, and I need you to not ask questions about why. There was a pause. Okay. If someone in management was submitting reports with inconsistencies, numbers that didn't match source documents, would there be a way to flag that? Another pause. Riley, is this about your department? Can you just tell me if that's possible? Yes, she said carefully. Our system logs every access, every approval, every change. It's all traceable. Why? Took a breath. I think my boss might be committing report fraud. And I think he blamed it on me. I could hear her breathing on the other end. If you provide dates and department codes, I can discreetly run a compliance check, she finally said. It would take a few days. But if there's actually fraud, it would show up. I have every single date, I told her. Then send them to me. But Riley, if this is what you think it is, you need to be careful. People like that don't go down quietly. After we hung up, I started typing. I compiled a spreadsheet with every incident I documented. I sent it to Maya with a note. Thank you. For everything. She replied in less than a minute. I'll start tomorrow. The next morning I sent an email to Diane in HR. Not aggressive. Not accusatory. Professional. Dear Diane, I would like to submit additional documentation related to my suspension. I have detailed records that I believe are relevant to the review of my employment. Please let me know when I can provide these materials. Thank you, Riley Morgan. I attached one file. A single spreadsheet. Not my smoking guns. Just enough to make them curious. The email was sent at 8:47 a.m. Diane replied at 9:14 a.m. Please come in for a meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Bring your documentation. That's when I knew he was in trouble. Because HR doesn't do that. They don't ask you to come back with documents unless something has already made them uncomfortable. I didn't expect him to find out about my meeting before it happened. But he did. I was walking to my car after picking up Aiden from school when I heard his voice behind me. Riley. Wait. Turn. He was standing by the parking garage, checking over his shoulder. His face was pale. His usual confidence was gone. Don't do this, he said, and his voice actually shook. Whatever you're planning, don't do this. I'm not planning anything, I said calmly. I'm just providing documentation. You don't understand what you're doing, he said, stepping closer. If you go into that meeting with complaints about me, I have documentation about you. I will destroy you. Then show HR your documentation, I said. Let's have it both ways. His jaw clenched. He pulled a folder from his bag. Thick, my name printed on the tab. I've been preparing this for months. Every mistake, every missed deadline. Everything I have says you're the liability. Good, I said. Then you have nothing to worry about. But as I walked away, I noticed something. His hands were shaking too. The next morning, I walked into the HR conference room with a USB drive and my laptop. Diane was there. So was James, the HR director. And to my surprise, so was the company's attorney, Austin Cole, sitting quietly in the corner. That's when I knew this had escalated beyond internal HR review. "Thank you for coming in, Ms. Morgan," James said formally. "Before we discuss your documentation, we want to present what we found during our initial review." They opened a binder. Thick one. Inside were screenshots, email chains, performance reviews, and a detailed timeline of my incompetence. Every page looked official. Every page looked damaging. "These documents were provided by your manager at the time of your suspension," James explained. "However, we've noticed some inconsistencies." He slid one page toward me. It was a performance review, supposedly from 6 months ago. The problem, I'd never received this review. I'd never even seen it. "I didn't fill this out," I said. "That's not my feedback form." "We noticed," Austin said quietly from the corner. "The formatting is different. The language doesn't match. Can you point us to what's inaccurate?" I opened my laptop and pulled up my personal files. I had digital copies of every performance review I'd actually received. I had emails congratulating me on projects. I had client feedback praising my work. But more than that, I had screenshots of Jason's files. "This review doesn't exist in any system I have access to," I said. "But I found it on your manager's personal drive. I also found the draft." I showed them the file. The one that said, "Need to make this look official. Make sure the dates match when I'm planning to move." The room went completely silent. "May I show you something else?" "Yes." James nodded slowly. I pulled up my backup files, the ones with timestamps, the ones with metadata. I walked them through the Westbrook report. "Here's his instruction to me," I said, showing them the email. "And here's my refusal. And here's the approved document, which was filed hours after my refusal." I pulled up the metadata. "This shows who accessed the file and when. This timestamp shows it wasn't me. This device ID belongs to manager-level access. The VPN log shows it was accessed from Jason's home IP address." Austin leaned forward. "You kept all of this." "I keep everything," I said simply. "I'm a single mother. I can't afford to lose my job. So I document." "How many other instances like this are there?" James asked, his voice careful. 17 documented," I said. "All of them follow the same pattern. An instruction I refuse. A file modification I didn't make. A submission that uses my approval but my device ID never touched it." Diane's face had gone completely white. "Why would Jason change these documents?" she asked. I looked directly at her. "Ask him." That night Maya called. "Riley, I found something," she said without preamble. 2 of Jason's reports from the past year were flagged by our automated system for inconsistencies. The numbers don't match the source documents. The approvals are questionable. What did he say about it? He blamed clerical staff. Specifically, he blamed you in writing. Claimed you'd misprocessed data and that he'd only recently discovered it. But the timestamps show something different. The timestamps show Jason accessing those files through a VPN after hours, making changes, and then resubmitting them with false approval dates. "Riley, this isn't just fraud. This is systematic fraud, and he's been trying to frame you for it." Closed my eyes. What happens now? Normally, compliance would escalate internally. But Austin Cole, he's the company attorney, right? "He was at my HR meeting," I said. "Yeah, well, he called me directly. Asked about any flags on your manager's reports. I told him everything. He's escalating this to the SEC. This is bigger than an internal review now. This is criminal." After we hung up, I sat in the dark and tried to process what that meant. Criminal. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I went back through my files methodically. And I found it. Deletion logs. System records of files that had been removed. Permanently purged from the recycle bin, which meant someone with IT admin access had done it. Jason's username was attached to 37 deletions. All from the night before my suspension. All related to last quarter's audit. And here's what made it a time bomb. Last quarter's audit had shown discrepancies. Unexplained gaps. Missing entries. Jason had explained them as clerical errors. But those entries, the ones he'd deleted, they would have shown that he'd actually created those discrepancies himself. He'd been covering his tracks. Destroying evidence. Almost succeeded in making me the scapegoat. Created a timeline. Deletion date and time. What the files contained. Which audit records they corresponded to. I sent it to Austin and Maya with a single line. This might be what you're looking for. HR called me in 3 days later. The tone was completely different this time. Ms. Morgan, James said, and I noticed he was using my last name now, the formal version. We've been conducting a thorough review of what you've presented. He slid a different folder toward me. Not the fake performance reviews. Not the doctored documents. A folder containing questions. Questions about irregularities in reports. Questions about unauthorized database access. Questions about modifications to approved documents. Are you familiar with these issues? James asked. I documented them, I said. They're in my files. Can you walk us through what you found? So I did. For 2 hours, I walked them through 17 instances of fraud. 17 different ways Jason had manipulated documents, blamed me for errors he'd created, and submitted false reports to the company. And I watched their faces crumble as they realized they'd almost fired the one person who was actually doing the job right. The auditors came the next day. Internal auditors. The kind who show up when something has potentially cost the company serious money and expose them to serious legal liability. They asked me to come in at 8 in the morning. Ms. Morgan, we understand you maintained detailed records of your work. Can you explain why? I'd prepared this answer. Because I'm a single mother, and I can't afford to lose my job based on someone else's word. So I documented everything. I have email chains, system logs, screenshots, timestamps. The lead auditor, a woman named Stephanie, nodded slowly. That was smart, she said. And it saved this company. Jason Blackwell's fraud goes back at least 3 years. We're still calculating the total exposure. 3 years. Did anyone else know? Yes. Not until you came forward. He was very careful. Very methodical. He'd probably still be doing it if you hadn't decided to document everything. Jason made his biggest mistake on a Tuesday afternoon. He texted me. You're done, Riley. Walk away from this or I will ruin you. Have lawyers. I have resources. You have nothing. I read it once. Then I took a screenshot. Then I forwarded it to Austin, Maya, and the auditors with no message. Because by that point he didn't have resources anymore. He had a suspension pending review. He had criminal investigators asking questions. He had auditors reviewing 3 years of his work. And he had that one moment of panic, captured in a text message, where he tried to intimidate the one woman who could destroy him, which she already had. HR called me into a meeting 4 hours later, and Austin was there with his arms crossed. We need to move quickly, he said. Your manager has made a direct threat. We're escalating his suspension to termination. Effective immediately. But that wasn't the end of it. 2 days after Jason's suspension was made permanent, an anonymous envelope showed up at my apartment. No return address. Inside was a compliance report. One that detailed 6 audit failures over the past 5 years, all attributed to clerical errors by Jason Blackwell. All of them actually involving suspicious data modification. All of them totaling nearly $200,000 in unaccounted for discrepancies. Someone inside the company was sabotaging Jason's cover-up. Someone wanted to make sure he went down completely. I suspected I knew who. Someone who'd probably lost their job or promotion because of Jason. But I didn't ask questions. I just forwarded the report to the auditors. It was the final nail. Then Jessica reached out. Jessica Park was a junior analyst in our department. She'd been there for only 8 months when I was suspended. I barely knew her. She asked me to meet her at a coffee shop 3 blocks from the office. When I got there, she was shaking. Literally shaking. "I need to tell you something," she said quietly. "Jason asked me to sign a statement. He said you'd broken protocol. He said he was documenting your incompetence, but he needed another witness. Did you sign it?" Yes. "No. It was new. I was scared. But I'd never actually seen you do anything wrong. You've actually been really helpful to me." So I told him no. She pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot of an email chain. "Jessica, I need you to sign this statement about Riley's protocol violation," Jason's email said. "It's important for the department." Her response: "I can't sign something I didn't witness." His follow-up: "Then just sign it anyway. It will help the department's credibility." I reached across the table and grabbed her hand. "Thank you. For being honest. For refusing to do it." The auditors found it on Jason's laptop after it was confiscated. An email. Dated 8 months ago. Sent from his personal email account to his work account. The subject line: "Access needed to modify Q3 numbers." The message: "Need VPN credentials to access database after hours. Will clean up Q3 discrepancies and reassign approvals to junior staff. Will claim clerical errors if audited." He'd literally written out his fraud plan in an email. But it wasn't the message that was damning. It was what happened next. The system logs showed that 4 minutes after that email, someone accessed the approval system from a VPN connection using device credentials flagged as manager-level access. And the device ID, the unique identifier for his laptop, was logged, making 43 modifications to documents that evening. All of them involving data he'd reported as clerical errors. Austin called me personally when they found it. "This is the email we've been looking for," he said quietly. "This is the one that proves intent. This is conspiracy, fraud, falsification of records. This is criminal." The next time HR called me in, they didn't ask questions. They made statements. "Ms. Morgan," James said, and I noticed everyone was now addressing me formally, with respect in their voices. "We owe you a profound apology. We failed you. We should have verified the documentation before acting." Diane slid a new folder across the table. "We're offering reinstatement to your position, effective immediately. Back pay for all wages lost. A promotion to senior operations manager. And a formal apology in your personnel file." I stared at the folder. "There's something else," Austin said quietly. "Jason Blackwell has been terminated for cause. A criminal investigation is underway. And the company is prepared to make a settlement offer to you for wrongful suspension and emotional distress." The number they offered was enough to put Aiden through college. Enough to cover years of childcare that I'd been scrambling to afford. "I have one question," I said. "Of course," Austin replied. "When?" "Monday," James said. "Your new office is ready. Your team is waiting for you. We'd like you to come back." Before I said yes, Austin wanted to have a private conversation with me. We sat in his office. Just the two of us. "I need to ask you something," he said. "And your answer matters for what happens next." "Okay," I said. "Did you gather all of this information with the intention of destroying your manager? Or did you gather it to protect yourself?" I didn't hesitate. To protect myself. To protect my job. I didn't know what he'd done. I just knew something was wrong, and I wasn't going to let myself get blamed for it. He nodded slowly. "That matters. Because there's a difference between someone who documents things for defensive purposes and someone who's planning something. You documented things in good faith. You kept records because your livelihood depended on it. That's not conspiracy. That's self-preservation. Does that change anything?" "Yes. It changes everything," he said. "Because it means when you go back to work, you're not walking in there with blood on your hands. You're walking in as the person who did the right thing. He smiled. That's why I'm recommending you for the promotion. The email went out company-wide the next morning. Effective immediately, Jason Blackwell has been suspended pending termination for gross misconduct, fraud, and violation of company policy. His keycard stopped working at noon. By 1 o'clock, rumors were flying. Someone had seen him in the lobby talking to security. Someone said he was in Austin's office screaming. Someone said he was demanding a meeting with the CEO. I stayed quiet. I worked. I reviewed files for my new position. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. Not yet. The CEO called me personally that afternoon. Elizabeth Crawford. The woman who'd hired Jason 5 years ago. The woman who'd trusted him. The woman who'd almost let him destroy me. Ms. Morgan, she said, and her voice was cold. Professional. Angry. I'd like to understand exactly what happened. We met in her office. Just the two of us, and a recording device that she activated openly. Tell me everything, she said. So I did. For an hour and a half, I walked her through every single incident. Every altered document. Every impossible deadline. Every moment where something didn't add up. Every file I'd saved. I showed her my documentation methodology. I explained why I'd kept such detailed records. I walked her through the timeline of my suspension and response. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. You protected this company, she finally said. You know that. By documenting everything, by refusing to be railroaded, by insisting on the truth. You protected us. I was protecting myself, I said honestly. I know. But the result is the same. And I want you to know how much that matters to me. 2 weeks later, Maya sent me a text. It's official. Compliance opened a case. There are multiple violations. CC is involved. Then an hour later. Riley. They found something big. Jason's fraud goes back 7 years. Not 3. 7. Different departments, different employees he blamed. He's looking at felony charges. I thought it was contained. Just my department, just my situation. But Jason had been doing this for so long that there was a pattern. Multiple victims. Multiple cover-ups. Multiple times where he'd successfully blamed someone else and walked away clean. Until he met someone who documented everything. 7 years of fraud. And it all came apart in 3 weeks. I was walking into the building on a Monday morning when I saw him. Jason was in the lobby. 2 security guards flanked him. He was holding a box of personal belongings, his face red, his voice loud enough that everyone in the entrance could hear him. This is insane. This is a witch hunt. She fabricated all of this. He was screaming, face purple with rage. When he saw me walking in, he lunged. The security guards grabbed him immediately. That's her, he shrieked. She did this. She set me up. She. Sir, one of the guards said firmly. You need to leave. Now. He tried to break away. He tried to come toward me. And I just stood there, calm, professional, unmoved, watching him completely lose control. Because he finally understood. Finally understood that he'd lost everything. And it was all his own doing. They'd offered me reinstatement on Monday. On Friday they offered me the corner office. Not just a promotion. A complete restructuring of the department. Jason's position was being eliminated. The team he'd managed would be distributed. And I would oversee operations for 3 departments. Raise. Bonus. Stock options. We can't undo what happened, Elizabeth said in my new office. Sunlight streaming through windows. But we can recognize what you did. I'm not accepting this out of gratitude, I said carefully. I'm accepting it because I earned it. I did the work. I kept this department running. I documented everything. I protected myself and the company. I deserve this. She smiled. Yes, you do. 6 months later, Jason Blackwell pleaded guilty to 7 counts of fraud and falsification of records. He never contacted me again. I didn't expect him to. I was too busy actually doing his job, The one he'd pretended to do for 5 years while blaming other people for his failures. Aiden started at a better school. We moved to a better apartment. I opened a college fund that didn't make me lose sleep. And every single night I still save everything. Every email, every document, every record. Not because I was paranoid anymore, but because I'd learned something that most people never have to learn. When someone tries to bury you, they expect you to panic. They expect you to cry. They expect you to fight back emotionally, desperately, visibly. What they never expect is for you to stay calm. To document. Wait. To let the truth speak louder than your anger ever could. My boss had tried to destroy me by forging documents and building false cases. What he didn't count on was a single mother who'd learned that paper trails matter more than promises. That evidence matters more than emotion. That staying calm while gathering proof is infinitely more powerful than losing your mind. He dug his own grave. All I did was step aside and watch him fall. The truth doesn't need you to fight for it. Just needs you to document it. Everything else will follow.